Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a really cute little window card to show you. We'll be using several products from the Art Impressions collection. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at the stamp set that we're going to be using today. We've got that beautiful wreath, and then this cuts the opening out of that wreath, and this little die that is also included opens that door, cuts a little opening so the mailbox door opens and closes. We're going to grab that bow from that mailbox. We're going to grab that little individual rose as well. But you can see here that this creates a really cute trifold card, and this is called Sweet Wishes. So I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. That piece on the left is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And for this piece on the right, we're going to stamp the ribbon from the mailbox and that extra little rose. And again, we're just going to grab the bow from this one, so I don't need to stamp the whole thing. And then we're going to grab that little rose. I've placed these in my Misty stamp positioner. And I do have the Misty sticky mat in there so that I don't have to put any tape or anything underneath there. They'll stay in place nicely. I'll apply some of my Pink and Main anti-static powder because we are going to be doing some embossing. And then for ink, I'm using the Hero Arts Unicorn Pigment ink. So this is an embossable ink. And this is a beautiful bright white ink. This is great for doing your embossing, especially if you're using white embossing powder. We're going to be using a satin white today, and I'll show you that here in a second. I'll press that out with my Stampendable stamp press. And now we can go ahead and do that embossing. I'm going to be using the Hero Arts White Satin Pearl embossing powder, and this is just so beautiful. It's just really pretty. It's going to give this wreath a really elegant look. So I'll sprinkle that on, and then we'll tap away any excess. And then of course anything I have left there can be put right back in the jar, and we can save that for later. Let's grab the heat tool and we'll go ahead and emboss this. Now you will have a difficult time seeing that embossing on the white cardstock, so I do apologize for that. But I thought this look would be really pretty with the white powder, the white satin pearl powder on the white cardstock. And you'll see once we color this in how pretty this will be. Now you do want to make sure it's all shiny. If you see any dark spots, you do want to go back over it with your heat tool. Let's grab the coordinating die. And of course this is going to cut the opening out of the center of that wreath so that we can see through to the inside of the card. I'll tape that down with a little bit of Post-it tape, and we can run that through the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. You see here I am going to put in some brand new plates. I just don't want to damage, this is the front of the card, so I don't want to get any of those weird little lines or markings on that cardstock. And I did want to make sure I protected that embossing really well. So now I've got that panel for the front of my card, but I also need to cut that opening again in the card itself. So I'm going to open the card up and lay it flat. Make sure I line this front panel up perfectly with the front of the card. I can drop this die right down into place. It'll just lock right into place. I'll tape that down. And then I am going to put a little bit of Post-it tape right along that score line just to make sure this doesn't move around. Again, I've got those brand new plates in my die cutting machine, so my card is not going to get damaged at all. Let's go ahead and remove that die, and you can see now that these two panels will line up perfectly, and we'll be able to see right through to the inside of the card. It'll also give a little bit more substance to the front of our card as well. Now let's go ahead and do the coloring. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner as we're going along, I'll be listing the colors. And for right now, I'm starting with pale green and light green. Of course, these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens that I'm using. I'm also placing the packaging in camera so that you can see what I'm coloring. I know it's so hard to see with that white on white embossing. So I did want you to be able to kind of see what I'm coloring. So I colored in all that greenery the exact same way, so I won't bore you with all of that. And then I switched over to tea rose and light carmine. And we'll color in all of these little roses the same way. I'll just show you a couple of those just to give you an idea. And this is really quick and easy coloring. You have that embossed line, so you can stay right within those lines very easily. So you can see how quick that will go. And then I'll color in this little individual bow. We're just going to be using this on our wreath. So I didn't need the mailbox. I just wanted to grab this pretty bow. And with those same two colors that we colored the roses with, I'm going to go ahead and color this in. And you can see I'm just adding a few shadows here and there just to give it a little bit more dimension. So again, I apologize for it's really difficult to see where the lines are that I'm coloring. But once it's colored, you can get a really good idea. And I'll give you a closer look at this in a second. So just adding a few more shadows. And then let's color in that individual rose. And I colored this in the same way I did the other roses on the wreath. Do keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. Now I've got my detail scissors and I'm going to cut around these. For that little bow, I cut right up to the lines. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the Wink of Stella glitter pen to give that a little sparkle. And for that little rose, I cut as close to the lines as I could. If you do feel like you cut into that embossing at all, just go ahead and heat set that with your heat tool and it will just kind of melt that powder right back onto your cardstock. With the Key Lime Fizz, this is the Hero Arts Reactive ink, so this blends beautifully. And I've got a Hero Arts blending brush as well. So I'm going to blend some of the Key Lime Fizz around all four sides of this front panel. And I'm adding a little bit more to the corners. And then once I have that done, we can go ahead and do a little bit of spattering. So I'm placing that ink directly onto my glass medium mat. I'll spritz that with a little bit of water from my Distress sprayer. And I'm picking that up with a little tiny paintbrush. I believe this is a number 0 brush, just because I want my spatterings to be very tiny. Now I'm just tearing a little piece of paper towel. I wanted to cover the wreath. I didn't want to get a lot of spattering on that, so I'm just kind of covering that up. You could use scrap paper, you could use some masking paper, but I thought this was quick and easy to do. So I'll go ahead and spatter this entire panel. And I did keep the center of that panel the lightest when I was doing my ink blending. Let's set that aside to dry and grab the Easter Chicks set. Again from Art Impressions, and look how cute these are. These are just adorable, and you get little hats and bows for them, little bunny ears. It's just the sweetest little set. We're going to grab this little chick and the coordinating die. And let's go ahead and stamp this and color this in. Again, I'm using that same Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. We'll use that same Unicorn Pigment ink. And then we're going to emboss this the exact same way we did before. I did do a double stamping on this just to make sure I had a nice, bright, crisp image. And then let's sprinkle on that white satin embossing powder. That white satin pearl embossing powder, I should say. And then we can put that excess right back in the container. And hopefully you can see that there. So now I'm using yellow, mustard, tea rose, and light carmine to color this in. These little chicks are just so much fun to color in. This is great for an Easter card. Today, our card could be used for just about anything. We're going to be putting a sentiment inside that says, wishing you every bloomin' thing. So that could be for birthday, Easter, congratulations, anything that you want. So I just thought this chick was just so cute and would look cute peeking out from behind our wreath. So I added a little bit of the tea rose to the cheeks and that mustard color around the edges, and I'll just kind of bring that in towards the center a little bit. I thought the mustard just gave him a little bit more depth, a few more shadows. The yellow, sometimes it's hard to get your shadowing just by adding more layers of yellow. I don't always find I can get enough of that shadowing. So I grabbed that mustard. You could certainly grab beige if you wanted to, or even a gray. A light gray would work here. So I'm going to do the beak with the tea rose and the light carmine. And then off camera, I did take a little bit of that mustard color and put it right over the eyes because they were really hard to see. They are embossed in that white pearl. And so off camera, I added a little bit of mustard to the right above that eye line. And I'll show you that here as we go along. Let's grab the coordinating die and run that through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. Look how cute this little guy is. So now I want to cut a little slit in his arm. I want him to be holding that individual rose that we stamped and colored in earlier. So I've got my magnetic We Are Makers mat, and it does come with a magnetic ruler, and I'm just going to use that to hold it in place while I go around with an X-Acto knife and just cut that little wing. I'm just making a little slot there behind the wing so that I can drop that rose right in behind there. It'll look like the little chick is holding this rose. So you can see that there. And when you're cutting with your X-Acto knife, you want to cut, I like to make little light cuts, cut through like part way through the layer of cardstock and then a cut again and again. So I'll cut through 2 or 3 times until I cut all the way through the cardstock. I just find it's easier to do. Now I'm taking that key lime fizz and going all the way around the edges of this green cardstock, and this is from Hero Arts as well, and it's called Kiwi. And I cut this to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, just like our front panel is. Now you will see that there's a sentiment stamped and embossed on there. And what ended up happening, just full disclosure here, is I found out that the stamp that I used has been discontinued. So I didn't want to use something on my card that is no longer available. It does say love you a bunch, and so I'll end up covering over top of that. But I did want to show you how I colored in this background. So again, I put that key lime fizz ink all the way around the edges, and then I spattered that panel just like we did on that front panel. I've got my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and we'll go ahead and slide that right into place. Now when you are putting a full panel inside your card, you may need to trim off a little bit off the side just to make sure it fits in there nicely. I mean like maybe a 1/16 of an inch, so play around with that before you go ahead and glue it down. Let's go ahead and put the front panel on, and I do want to make sure I have plenty of glue right around that opening just to make sure it doesn't pop up. And again, with the glue, that gives me a little time to slide things around just to make sure I have this lined up really well. You can see I'm just kind of moving it around till I get it lined up perfectly. And then I'll just press that out. You can let that dry for a minute or two. You can place something heavy on there and allow that to dry. I'm going to tuck this little chick right in behind that window. Again, placing plenty of glue on this, and then I'll press that out with my fingers a little bit just to make sure it's right edge to edge on that little chick. And I'm just kind of looking through that window to see where I want this to go. And again, with that glue, I can slide it around a little bit till I get that perfect placement. Let's go ahead and pop up that bow for the wreath. and I'm going to use the scrapbook.com double-sided foam squares. These are the small foam squares. This will give a little bit more dimension to the front of the card. Now it would be fun if you colored in all your roses in different colors, pinks and reds or purples or whatever you like. Have some fun with this, and then let's go ahead and pop this up, and look how pretty that is. I just love that. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more dimension to that wreath. I'm using the Hero Pearls in the white. These are gorgeous, and these coordinate really well with this white satin pearl embossing powder that we used. It has that same pearlized look to it. So these two together are absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to just put some little dots of this all around the wreath. And when you're using these pearls, it's a good idea to squeeze it onto some scrap paper first. Just get out any air bubbles. Get a nice flow on your pearls before you go to your cardstock. So I usually test it on a piece of scrap paper, get it going nicely, and then I go to my card. Just using those scissors to hold that down for me. Now, here's where I am going to change out that sentiment. So I'm using the Mrs. set from Art Impressions, and look how cute this is. This little lady, she's got all different hats she can wear, but I'm going to grab that cute little sentiment that says, wishing you every bloomin' thing. So I thought that really was great with this card, and again, can be used for any birthday or thinking of you, whatever you want. So let's go ahead and grab another piece of that Kiwi cardstock from Hero Arts, and we'll stamp that image with that same white ink and that same white pearl embossing powder. Let's heat set this. And now I'm going to cut this down just to cover that little sentiment that we already had there. But I have to tell you that sometimes the fix creates something you didn't think of or that you like even better. So let's grab that square die from the Nested Square Die set from Art Impressions. And we're going to cover that sentiment that we already have in the card, but again, it's going to be really cute. I ended up loving how this came out, so sometimes it's a happy mistake, and I wasn't about to throw out the whole card, so I decided that a quick fix would work, and I really loved how it came out. But either way would work. So there we have our little square with the sentiment on it. Let's go ahead and attach that on the inside of the card. And again, I'm just covering that sentiment. Now I do need to bring a little bit more of that Kiwi ink onto this panel. So I'm going to take that blending brush and I'm going to blend back up over that just a little bit, just to add a little bit more color there. Once that was done, I grabbed my white gel pen and I added some little stitches all the way around the outside of that square, and now I'm adding them on the inside of the square. So we'll have like a double stitched line all the way around. I'll add a couple little hash marks to make it look stitched, and look at how cute this is. I really love this change, but either way would work fine. So let's take a closer look at the finished card, and I love those pearls as well. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.